Your mind is the foundation of everything. What you allow yourself to think shapes who you become. That's not just a quote to admire, it's a truth you live every day. If your thoughts are fragile, your actions will follow that same weakness. If you constantly think small, your life will remain contained in the same limited space. But the instant you shift your thinking, you ignite a change that moves every part of your life into a new realm. Habits evolve. Decisions improve. Confidence grows. Because at the root of all transformation lies your mind. If you continue to think like the person you used to be, you'll keep living that same life you're trying to outgrow. There will be no real progress. No authentic change. But when you choose to think with clarity, conviction, and deliberate purpose, your external world begins to match your internal vision. This isn't some empty motivational line. This is the mental reset you've been needing. If you're ready to reclaim the power of your thinking and evolve into the person you're truly capable of becoming, then consider this your starting line. Pay close attention, because everything shifts starting now. Control your thoughts before they control you. Your mind doesn't simply reflect your circumstances, it defines them. The statement, "What you think you become," isn't just something you frame on a wall, it's a warning, and more importantly, an opportunity. If you don't take conscious control over what enters your mind, someone else, or something else, will. And when you surrender that control, don't be surprised when your life drifts in directions you never intended. Every decision you make, every action you take, every habit you build, they all begin as thoughts. Not once, but repeatedly. The mind thrives on repetition. When you continuously think a certain way, that thinking solidifies into your reality. You cannot continue thinking with weak patterns and expect powerful results. You can't operate with a victim mentality and expect to live like a champion. Life simply doesn't work like that. So ask yourself, who's in charge up there? Is it fear that's running your mental commands? Because fear will make you hesitate. Is it doubt? Doubt will convince you to quit before you've even made progress. Is it blame? Blame will keep you occupied pointing fingers instead of solving problems. But if it's responsibility, discipline, and belief guiding your thoughts, that's when everything starts to shift. When you own your thinking, you reclaim the driver's seat of your life. You have to take this seriously because every single day, you're bombarded with noise, both from others and from within. The world will tell you what's realistic, what's possible, what you should expect, and often, those voices don't have your best interests in mind. But they don't get to live in your head unless you give them permission. You are the gatekeeper of your own mind. Not your friends. Not your parents. Not your coworkers. You. And here's a fact that most people ignore. The mind is never neutral. If you don't consciously fill it with useful, empowering thoughts, it will fill itself with whatever is easiest: worry, comparison, regret, and excuses. When those low-quality thoughts loop long enough, they feel normal. You wake up thinking small. You go to sleep doubting yourself. And you live every day hesitating, not because you lack the ability, but because you've never challenged those limiting thoughts. The first step is awareness. You must start catching your own thoughts as they arise. Become conscious of the story you're telling yourself throughout the day. Don't wait for some magical burst of motivation. Begin now. When adversity strikes, what's your first internal reaction? Do you immediately blame others? Do you criticize yourself? Or do you pause and ask, what can I learn here? When faced with an unfamiliar challenge, listen carefully to your mental dialogue. Do you hear, "I'm not ready"? Do you think, "What if I fail"? Or do you remind yourself, "I'll figure it out, no matter what"? These seemingly small moments shape your entire trajectory. It's not the rare motivational speeches that transform your life. It's the daily, quiet conversations you have with yourself that determine your direction. Many people were raised around negative thinkers, people who feared success, who constantly expected failure, who warned against dreaming too big. You may have carried their thinking with you from childhood into adulthood, from job to job, from one failed relationship to the next. The only way to break this cycle is to take full responsibility for the thoughts you allow to remain in your mind. You don't have to accept every thought as truth. Not every worry deserves attention. Not every fear deserves respect. Not every opinion deserves a seat at your table. You must become extremely selective. Your mind is precious real estate. Don't rent space to fear, regret, or self-doubt. Upgrade your inner dialogue. Stop saying things like, "I always mess up," or "I'm just not good at this." That kind of language silently chips away at your confidence. Hear it enough, and you'll start living as though it's true, even when it's not. Replace those statements. Speak clearly about who you intend to become. Say it with conviction. Repeat it often. Repeat it until it sounds familiar, because the mind believes what it hears repeatedly. Belief isn't magic. It's built through repetition. This is daily work. Controlling your mind isn't a decision you make once and then forget. Every day, someone or something will try to plant thoughts in your head. If you're not vigilant, those seeds will take root. You have to maintain your mental space like you maintain your physical home. Clean it regularly. Don't wait until it becomes a mess. Positive thinking isn't about ignoring problems. It's about thinking strong enough to face them. Weak thinking flees from challenges. Strong thinking says, "I can handle this." That's where true progress comes from. You don't rise to the level of your dreams. You rise to the level of your thinking. If you want a better life, it starts with better thoughts. If you want better results, it starts with stronger thinking. You can't continue recycling old mental patterns and expect a new outcome. Change your mind first. Your actions will follow. The good news? You don't have to be perfect. You only need to stay aware. Recognize when your thinking is working against you. Challenge it. Replace it. Do it daily. Do it relentlessly, until those new, empowering thoughts become your default state. When you take charge of your mind, you take charge of your destiny. You stop being a prisoner of your past. You stop waiting for luck or permission. You start building a life that reflects your values, your vision, your strength. You stop living by default and start living by design. This is the difference between drifting and driving. One leaves you powerless. The other puts you in full control. Every single day, examine your thoughts. Are they serving you or hurting you? Are they pulling you forward or holding you back? Because over time, what you repeatedly think, you become. That's not theory. That's reality. And the power is in your hands, one thought at a time. Real, lasting change always begins in your mind. If you want to transform your life, it starts by transforming how you think. Your thoughts shape your emotions. Your emotions drive your actions. And your daily actions build your future. When your thinking stays stagnant, don't expect the world around you to magically evolve. Until your mind shifts, your life won't either. Many people attempt to change their circumstances by working harder, adopting new habits, or setting new goals. While those are important steps, they rarely create permanent change on their own. You can change your job. You can change your routines. You can even change your surroundings. But if your mindset is still stuck in the same limited patterns you've carried for years, your results will circle back to where you started. Transformation isn't about what's happening around you. It's about what's happening inside your head. That's where the real battle takes place. Most people aren't stuck because they're incapable. They're stuck because they're trapped in the same old thought loops, beliefs like, "I always fail, this always happens to me," or, "It's too late to start." Those thoughts become scripts, and when you allow those scripts to run long enough, they start to feel like truth. That's why so many people live their lives on autopilot. They aren't consciously choosing their path. They're simply reliving the same mental stories day after day. But you're not here to live on repeat. You're here to take ownership of your mind, to rewrite the script, and to reclaim your future. The first step to changing your thinking is awareness. You have to become a watcher of your own mind. Pay attention to the internal conversations you have throughout your day. When you're stressed, notice what you tell yourself. When you fail, listen to the self-talk that follows. When you face disappointment, observe your immediate thoughts. This is where your true mindset lies, not during easy moments, but during pressure. As you observe your thinking, you'll likely be surprised by how much negativity has been operating in the background. You'll uncover layers of self-doubt, fear, regret, and blame. But recognizing these patterns is empowering. You cannot change what you refuse to face. By becoming aware of these thoughts, you finally give yourself the ability to challenge and replace them. The second step is to actively challenge those thoughts. Just because a thought appears doesn't make it true. When a limiting thought arises, ask yourself, is this helpful? Is this pushing me toward growth? Is this the kind of thinking that creates the life I want? If the answer is no, then you have a choice. You can continue to fuel that thought, or you can reject it and replace it with something stronger. You must stop being passive with your thinking. Passive thinking creates a passive life. Far too many people wait for their circumstances to change while continuing to think in the same small, self-defeating way, and then they wonder why they feel stuck. They work harder, but mentally, they're driving with the parking brake on. They burn out. They lose energy. They grow frustrated, not because they lack talent, but because they're fighting against their own mindset. Real progress comes not from doubling your effort but from improving your thoughts. Change the mental narrative, and the work becomes smoother, lighter, and more effective. But here's where most people get it wrong. They think changing their mindset is a one-time decision. It's not. Rewiring your thinking is a daily practice. It's repetition. It's discipline. It's choosing stronger thoughts even when the old ones resurface, because they will. The brain loves familiarity. That's why most people fall back into old mental habits. Because familiar thinking feels safe, even if it keeps them stuck. So how do you begin rewiring your mind? Start by writing down the thoughts that no longer serve you. Be brutally honest. Write down the fears, the limiting beliefs, and the excuses you've carried. Then ask yourself, what do I need to believe in order to move forward? Don't just remove negative thinking, replace it with clear, powerful, intentional thoughts. If your old belief was, I can't succeed without someone helping me, rewrite it. I will succeed because I am resourceful enough to figure it out. If your old belief was, I've failed too many times, replace it. Every failure has made me wiser and stronger. Do this every single day. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. You're building a new internal voice, one repetition at a time. Understand this, your environment plays a significant role in shaping your thinking. The people you surround yourself with, the content you consume, the conversations you engage in, they all leave mental fingerprints. If you constantly expose yourself to negativity, excuses, and victimhood, your thinking will start to mirror that energy. You must protect your mind like your life depends on it, because it does. Spend time with people who challenge your thinking in healthy ways. People who take ownership of their lives. People who are solutions-focused. People who live the values you aspire to. Surrounding yourself with the right influences sharpens your mind, elevates your standards, and reminds you of what's possible. Here's a truth you must face. If your thinking is rooted in fear, you'll live small, even if you have big dreams. If your thinking is full of excuses, you'll always have a reason to procrastinate. If your thinking is built around comfort, you'll avoid discomfort, and without discomfort, you cannot grow. You must choose. Do you want to protect your comfort or protect your growth? You can't do both. Growth requires you to think in ways you haven't before. It requires ownership. Ownership of your wins. Ownership of your failures. Ownership of your habits, your patterns, your outcomes. That's where true freedom is born, the day you stop blaming and start thinking differently. This isn't about pretending everything is fine. It's not about forcing fake positivity. It's about building a mindset strong enough to face reality, endure difficulty, and keep moving forward with clarity. And yes, this takes daily work. Discipline. Commitment. You don't just want change, you must build the thinking that creates change. When this becomes your identity, everything else starts to align. your habits strengthen. Your confidence grows. Your actions sharpen. Slowly but surely, your entire life transforms. Not because you tried harder, but because you thought better. If you're feeling stuck, ask yourself one simple question: have I truly changed my thinking, or am I still recycling the same old patterns while expecting new results? Because the truth is simple: your mind creates your life. Strong thoughts build strong lives. Weak thoughts build weak ones. You are always one thought away from a different life. The choice is yours. Most people don't struggle because they lack strength. They struggle because they don't believe the strength is already within them. That's the difference between those who move forward and those who stay stuck. It's not about talent. It's not about luck. It's not even about knowledge. It's about how deeply you believe in your own ability to rise when challenges appear. Belief is not something that arrives on its own. You must build it. You have to train your mind to see your own strength even when your circumstances are against you. You have to intentionally construct that belief, brick by brick, moment by moment, thought by thought. No one is born with unshakable confidence. No one wakes up naturally wired for strength. Belief is earned through consistency. When you train your mind to believe in your ability, you stop needing external validation. You stop waiting for ideal conditions. You stop depending on motivation. Instead, you stand up when you're uncertain. You move forward even when it's uncomfortable. You keep going even when doubt screams for you to stop. That's the true foundation of strength. It begins with how you think about yourself. If you keep telling yourself that you're not enough, you will act small. If you continue replaying your past mistakes, you will avoid growth. If you allow doubt to be louder than effort, you will quit long before you've ever given yourself a chance to succeed. But when you deliberately feed your mind with truth, the truth that you've overcome more than you realize, that you've survived moments you didn't think you could, that you've been through hardship and still kept standing, your belief gets stronger. And as belief strengthens, action becomes easier. That's the shift. That's where power begins to take root. This is why relying on motivation is dangerous. Motivation is inconsistent. Some days it's there. Some days it's not. But belief, true belief, holds steady. When you've built belief, you don't wait for the right mood. You show up because you've trained your mind to see yourself as capable, even on the hard days. Understand this: your mind listens to everything you tell it, whether you speak it aloud or quietly think it. It doesn't argue with you. If you say you can't, your mind accepts it. If you say you're not ready, your mind agrees. If you say you're weak, it believes you. But when you flip the script, when you say, "I may not have all the answers, but I'll figure it out," your mind shifts gears. When you say, "I've handled hard things before, I can handle this too," your brain starts scanning for proof of your resilience. And it finds it. That's how belief is built, not through empty hope, but through repeated, intentional thoughts that empower you. You cannot wait for belief to randomly show up. You must create it. You must cultivate it by doing the very things that scare you. You strengthen it every time you keep a promise to yourself. When you say, "I'll wake up early tomorrow," and you do, it matters. When you say, "I'll finish this project," and you follow through, it counts. Every small win adds another stone to your foundation. One of the biggest lies people tell themselves is this: "I'll believe in myself when I feel ready." But that day rarely arrives on its own. Readiness doesn't come before belief, it's the product of action. You don't wait to believe. You build belief by doing, by trying, by acting even while nervous, even while uncertain. Each time you take a step forward despite the discomfort, your mind gathers evidence that you are capable. That's how you create unshakable confidence, not from wishful thinking, but from repeatedly proving to yourself that you can take action no matter how you feel. Yes, this takes work. It takes complete honesty about the thoughts you currently hold. It takes catching the old, limiting beliefs. It takes replacing them with new ones until they feel natural. Most people try once or twice and give up. They say, "It's not working." But you're not flipping a switch. You're building a system. And systems take time. Be patient with the process, but be relentless with the discipline. Every time you choose belief over doubt, you grow stronger. Real strength isn't loud. It's not dramatic. It's steady. It's grounded. It's built day by day, choice by choice. That's what carries you through setbacks. That's what keeps you moving when nobody's watching. You must also understand, your past does not define your strength. Maybe you've made mistakes. Maybe you've failed. Maybe others have doubted you, criticized you, overlooked you. That's fine. But none of that determines your future. Strength isn't about never falling. It's about standing up again and declaring, "This moment will not define me." You are not your worst decision. You are not your biggest failure. You are who you decide to become, starting right now. This is where daily practice matters. Just as you train your body, you train your mind. Begin every day by identifying one thing you're proud of, something you handled better than before, something you pushed through, something you improved. This is not arrogance. This is reinforcement. You are wiring your brain to see progress, to recognize growth, to respect your effort. Then go further. Write down the thoughts you want to believe about yourself. Do it daily. Make it real. Make it consistent. Make it clear. Speak phrases like, "I finish what I start." "I handle challenges calmly." "I stay focused when it gets tough." These are not empty affirmations. These are instructions. With enough repetition, they will stop feeling foreign. They will start feeling like your truth. Surround yourself with material that reinforces this mindset. Read books that build your mental discipline. Listen to voices that come from experience, not hype. Distance yourself from negativity, both from others and from your own self-talk. Ask yourself, would you let someone speak to your loved ones the way you sometimes speak to yourself? If not, change the dialogue. Your mind is always listening, even when the world is silent. Stop comparing your journey to anyone else's. You don't know their full story. You don't know their struggles. Strength is personal. It's not a competition. It's not a ranking. It's a relationship you build with yourself every single day. And when you stop waiting for approval, when you stop needing permission, when you finally take responsibility for your own belief, everything changes. You make sharper choices. You stop second-guessing yourself. You move forward with quiet confidence. Not because you're perfect, but because you know you'll handle whatever comes next. Yes, you'll still face hard days. You'll still hear doubts. But you'll have something solid to stand on, because you've trained your mind to believe in your own strength. You don't need anyone to validate you. You don't need anyone to give you permission. That's your responsibility now. And every time you choose to believe, every time you take action from that belief, you grow stronger. You stop waiting. You start building. And that is what transforms lives, not chance, not luck, but discipline, awareness, and daily belief. Train your mind to speak truth. Move like someone who knows their worth. Think like someone who refuses to quit. And watch everything around you begin to follow your lead. When your mind fully believes in your strength, the world has no choice but to believe it too. If you want to change your life, you must start thinking like the person you aim to become. Not someday in the future, but right now. That's where genuine transformation begins, not in your actions first, but in your thinking. You cannot cultivate confidence while thinking like someone who constantly doubts themselves. You cannot achieve success while thinking like someone who's terrified to start. Every action you take flows from the identity you build in your mind. You live out the beliefs that dominate your thoughts. If your thinking doesn't align with the life you say you want, no matter how much you work, you'll keep sabotaging your own progress. Thinking like the person you aspire to be means accepting responsibility for your mental state today. You stop postponing your growth by saying, "One day I'll think like that." Instead, you declare, "This is who I am becoming, and this is how I think starting now." Even before the results show up. Even before anyone notices. Even when no one believes in you. This is how people evolve. They make an internal decision to elevate their thinking long before the world recognizes the change. This is not about pretending to be something you're not. It's about becoming the person you were always capable of being. Ask yourself, how would the version of me I respect think right now? That's the question you carry into every decision, every challenge, every conversation, every day. If the person you're becoming is disciplined, start thinking like someone who values discipline. If the person you're becoming is focused, organize your thoughts like someone who respects their own time and energy. Don't wait until you feel ready. Don't wait for approval. Don't wait for the perfect conditions to align. Think now like the person you know you're meant to be, and let your reality catch up later. Most people make the mistake of waiting to feel like that person before they start thinking like them. But that's backwards. Growth is not something that arrives by accident. It's a decision first. A mental shift. You must consciously adjust how you speak to yourself, what you tolerate from yourself, where you place your time and focus. Slowly, your external life begins to change because your inner world shifted first. Start thinking like someone who keeps their word. When you say you'll do something, follow through even when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient. Start thinking like someone who protects their time and energy. Don't waste hours on distractions that don't serve your goals. Start thinking like someone who refuses to remain stuck, not replaying problems over and over, but actively searching for solutions. The version of you that you admire doesn't wait for conditions to be perfect. They act with intention, even when uncertainty is present. They move forward because purpose demands movement, not perfection. To reach this kind of mental alignment, you must face your current thinking honestly. No more excuses. How do you respond when life gets hard? Do you blame, complain, avoid, or shut down? Or do you pause and ask, what's the next right step? How do you respond when you're tired? Do you abandon your priorities, or do you find a way to stay committed? These are the moments where your identity is revealed. Not in theory, but in practice. You must identify the gap between your current thinking and the thinking required for the future you want. You cannot carry your old thought patterns into your new life. The two are not compatible. You must release the comfort of familiar thinking and deliberately adopt the mindset that stretches you into growth. Ask yourself, what would a confident person think when facing fear? What would a disciplined person do when motivation disappears? What would someone committed to growth focus on today? This is not about being perfect. This is about becoming serious. You can't allow sloppy thinking to produce sharp results. You can't operate like a quitter and expect to finish strong. You can't carry a victim's mindset and expect to lead your own life. Your thoughts become your choices. Your choices become your habits. Your habits shape your life. That is the formula. It's simple, but it requires relentless effort. Yes, it's easier to fall back into old mental habits. Yes, it's easier to say, that's just how I am. But easy is the trap. Easy leads to cycles of frustration. If you want something different, you must choose something different, inside your mind, not once, but every day. You build new thoughts the way you build strength, through challenge, repetition, and consistency. Take the time each day to mentally step into the shoes of the person you're becoming. Visualize how they wake up, how they speak, how they handle conflict, how they respond to pressure. Don't just admire them, become them. You won't receive permission to grow from anyone else. No one is going to hand you confidence or discipline. You must claim it by thinking and acting as if it already belongs to you. Most people spend their lives reacting to stress, criticism, fear. But the person you want to become responds. They respond with clarity. They respond with discipline. They respond with calm focus. And that response starts with your thinking. When you start thinking like the person you want to become, everything around you changes. You stop wasting time on trivial distractions. You stop over-explaining yourself. You raise your standards. You say no more often. You operate from internal power instead of external validation. And you begin to feel a quiet sense of pride. Not because you've arrived, but because you are living with alignment. This mindset will stretch you. It will force you to raise your standards. It will make you say no to comfort and yes to responsibility. But this is the price of transformation. The person you're meant to become doesn't live in your old habits. They live in clarity. They live in truth. They live with deliberate action. You get there by thinking your way into it, daily, intentionally, fully committed. You don't become someone you haven't already started thinking like. You don't wake up confident without first thinking thoughts of strength. You don't become successful without first adopting the mindset of someone willing to do the work. Your thinking is either working for you or against you. And every single day, you must decide which side you're on. Start today. Don't wait for the breakthrough. Make your thinking the breakthrough. Act like the version of you that refuses to give up. Speak like the version of you who knows they're capable. Think like the version of you who wakes up with purpose. You don't need permission. You need clarity. You need belief. You need courage. Think with strength. Think with focus. Think like the person you were always meant to be. And start now, not because everything is ready, but because you are. The direction of your life follows the direction of your thoughts. If your thinking is scattered, your life will feel chaotic. If your thinking is negative, your outcomes will reflect that negativity. But when you intentionally choose better thoughts, thoughts grounded in clarity, truth, and growth, your life starts to shift in ways you never expected. The majority of people are not held back by a lack of talent or opportunity. They are limited by the thoughts they allow to take root and live rent-free in their minds. Weak thoughts don't arrive as loud intrusions, they creep in as familiar habits. Doubt whispers, "You're not ready." Fear says, "What if you fail?" Guilt revisits your past and says, "You don't deserve this." And before long, those thoughts quietly shape your behavior, your decisions, and eventually your identity. What you allow to repeat in your mind eventually feels true, even if it never was. You see, better thoughts aren't about being artificially positive or pretending everything is perfect. They're about choosing thoughts that serve you. Thoughts that help you respond to reality with strength rather than surrender. You will always encounter challenges. But while one person sees challenges as obstacles, another sees them as opportunities to build resilience. Both are thoughts. Only one leads to growth. What you think is rarely a reflection of absolute truth. It's often a reflection of habit. And if your habits of thinking are weak, your actions will mirror that weakness. To elevate your life, you must first elevate the quality of your thinking. Most people live in mental autopilot. The moment they wake up, their minds begin replaying the same old concerns, doubts, and complaints. Without even realizing it, these repeated thought loops create the emotional tone of the day, shape their mood, affect their conversations, and limit their actions. If your first thought is, "I can't do this," you will carry hesitation into every task. If your first thought is, "Day will be another wasted day," don't expect anything meaningful to come from your efforts. The mind follows the instructions you give it. If you feed it defeat, it will search for reasons to validate that defeat. If you feed it strength, it will look for opportunities to grow stronger. Better thoughts don't arrive randomly, they require discipline. You must build them with repetition, with awareness, and with a conscious decision to replace the old with something more useful. Begin by observing your thoughts during unguarded moments. When you're alone, when you fail, when you're frustrated, when life doesn't go as planned. Pay close attention to your internal dialogue in these moments. This is where your true mindset reveals itself. You'll hear that voice. The one that says, "See? You always mess this up." Or, "You're falling behind again." Or, "You're not cut out for this." Those thoughts don't sound dramatic, but they are corrosive. They keep you from taking bold action. They slowly wear away your confidence. And worst of all, they feel so familiar that you start believing them without question. The goal is not to ignore hardship but to respond to it with clarity. Choosing better thoughts doesn't mean denying the reality of challenges. It means refusing to let those challenges define your worth or your capability. You can acknowledge the fear without becoming paralyzed by it. You can recognize setbacks without allowing them to derail your progress. Your thoughts are never fixed. They are adjustable. But you can't change what you don't recognize. That's why awareness is step one. Once you see the recurring patterns, you can intervene and shift them. Write them down. Expose them. Don't hide from the stories you've been telling yourself. Bring them into the light so you can confront them. For every thought that keeps you small, ask yourself, does this serve my growth? Is this how someone living the life I want would think? If the answer is no, it's time to rewrite the script. Replace "I always fail" with "Every failure teaches me how to improve." Replace "I'm not ready" with "I am learning and growing every day." Replace "This never works for me" with "Each attempt moves me closer to mastery." These replacements are not empty affirmations. They are building blocks of a stronger, more empowered identity. The words you speak to yourself create the foundation you stand on when life tests you. Understand this. If you continue choosing the same low-level thoughts, you will continue living a low-level life. You will hesitate more. You will settle more. You will shrink more. But when you decide that you are no longer available for weak, self-defeating thinking, something shifts. You stop feeding the patterns that kept you stagnant. You start standing taller. You start speaking clearer. You face pressure with calm, not panic. Life won't become easier, but your mind will become stronger. This practice is not about perfection, it's about progress. You will slip. You will forget. But you don't need to catch every negative spiral to make progress. Even catching one thought early and choosing a stronger replacement builds momentum. Over time, these small victories compound. Your default thoughts become clearer, more encouraging, more aligned with the person you are becoming. Also, be brutally honest about what feeds your thinking. Who do you surround yourself with? What kind of conversations do you entertain? What content do you consume? These inputs shape your mind far more than you realize. If you surround yourself with constant negativity, people who complain, who doubt themselves, who live in fear, it will infect your thinking. But if you immerse yourself in an environment of ownership, growth, responsibility, and strength, your mind will rise to match that level. Better thoughts don't grow in toxic soil. They require healthy inputs, people who challenge you, ideas that stretch you, information that nourishes your growth. You don't have to have all the answers to think stronger. You just need to commit to the discipline of thinking in ways that serve your growth. When the path ahead is unclear, strong thinking gives you the composure to move forward anyway. That is what separates those who evolve from those who stay stuck, not certainty, but the strength to keep moving when others freeze. Your mind is your responsibility. No one else can clean it for you. No one else can make your choices for you. You are the one who decides what thoughts to nurture and what thoughts to release. When your thinking improves, everything improves. Your conversations become richer. Your confidence deepens. Your decisions sharpen. Your habits strengthen. And slowly but surely, your life rises to match the level of your new mindset. There is no shortcut, but there is a process. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. You will stop being surprised by stress. You will stop panicking at setbacks. You will stop letting every small inconvenience throw you off course, because your thinking will finally be built on a solid foundation. You're not waiting for life to change. You are changing how you think, and that will change everything else. Weak thoughts don't simply arrive out of nowhere, they grow from what you allow. They thrive on hesitation, indecision, and self-doubt. Once they take root, they begin to weigh you down, robbing you of momentum, causing you to second-guess yourself at every turn. You hesitate when you should move. You question when you should act. And before you know it, you've built an internal habit of shrinking from every opportunity. But here's the truth: weak thoughts cannot survive in the presence of action. The very moment you move forward, even while afraid, those doubts begin to lose their grip. Action is the enemy of hesitation. Weak thoughts whisper, "You're not ready. What if you fail? What will they think?" This isn't the right time. They sound convincing. They seem reasonable. But they are thieves that steal your progress before it even begins. They drain your energy and keep you locked inside the same patterns you say you want to escape. You cannot debate weak thoughts into submission. You cannot wait for them to go away. You cannot overthink your way out of fear. The only antidote to weak thinking is movement. You outwork fear by stepping forward, not by negotiating with it. Action builds evidence. Evidence that you are capable. Evidence that you can handle the unknown. Evidence that you don't fold under pressure. Every time you take action despite discomfort, your brain stores proof that you can overcome. Over time, your identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as someone who needs to feel certain, and you start seeing yourself as someone who moves regardless. This is how you reclaim your mind. Not by arguing with every fearful thought, but by refusing to stand still. Weak thoughts only grow when you give them time and space to fester. They multiply when you sit idle, running endless what-if scenarios in your mind. You waste precious time and energy trapped in mental loops. But when you move, even in small steps, you break those loops. You don't need massive leaps to overcome weak thoughts. You only need movement. Write the email. Make the call. Show up to the gym. Speak the truth. Follow through on the thing you promised yourself. Each small step chips away at the fear. Each small act diminishes the power of hesitation. Weak thoughts only win when you believe they're worth listening to. But here's what most people forget. You're under no obligation to entertain every fearful thought that arises. You are allowed to reject them. You are allowed to interrupt the pattern. You are allowed to say, "I hear you, but I'm moving forward anyway." And the more often you make that choice, the more your mind adapts. You train your brain to recognize that fear no longer controls your next move. You're not the person you once were, the one who gave in to hesitation. You've changed because you've proven it through action. The lie people tell themselves is, "I'll act when I feel ready." But waiting for readiness is the ultimate trap. Readiness comes after action, not before. You create confidence by acting when you feel uncertain. You create belief by doing the work, not but daily. You don't defeat weak thoughts in one heroic moment. You wear them down over time, through repetition. Every time you show up, even when it's hard, you send a message to your mind: action matters more than fear. That's how you build a mindset that can't be shaken. Strong people don't avoid doubt. They've simply trained themselves to move before doubt multiplies. They don't wait for absolute certainty. They've developed the habit of forward motion despite uncertainty. Your mind needs proof that you're capable. And you provide that proof by doing the work. By getting up when you don't want to. By following through when it would be easier to quit. By staying focused when distractions scream for your attention. That's how you build true mental strength, through action, not debate. You don't need to argue with weak thoughts. That's wasted energy. You don't owe fear an explanation. You don't owe self-doubt a conversation. What you owe yourself is movement. What you owe your future is discipline. What you owe your vision is action. Not someday. Not later. Now. In this moment. Every time you act, you teach your mind something powerful. I am not helpless. I control my direction. I take responsibility for my choices. And as you repeat that pattern, your identity evolves. You stop seeing yourself as someone who needs saving, and you start seeing yourself as someone who creates progress. You shift from victim to leader of your own life. You will still hear weak thoughts. They don't vanish completely. But their volume fades as you stop feeding them attention. They lose their influence because you stop treating them like authority. You prove to yourself that most of what you feared was powerless the moment you moved forward. This isn't about pretending you're fearless. It's about consistently choosing strength over comfort. Weak thoughts will always try to keep you comfortable, small, and hidden. Action pulls you forward. Action creates growth. Action transforms you. If you want to feel stronger, act stronger. If you want clarity, move forward. Clarity comes through motion. If you want self-trust, show up for yourself when it's hard. Action not only produces results, it builds belief. You don't need another plan. You don't need to wait for motivation. What you need is to stop nurturing the part of you that wants to stay the same. Weak thoughts will always have something to say. But the more you act, the quieter they become, because your results will speak louder than your fears ever could. That's the shift. That's the decision. You stop waiting for confidence. You stop waiting for perfect timing. You stop entertaining thoughts that sabotage your growth. And you start living with courage, ownership, and relentless forward movement. You don't become stronger by thinking about it. You become stronger by doing something about it. When weak thoughts show up, don't sit with them. Don't negotiate with them. Replace them. Replace them with decisive action. Replace them with forward steps. Replace them with habits that build the life you say you want. Your mind will follow the path you walk. And the more steps you take towards strength, the easier it becomes to leave weakness behind, not because fear disappears, but because you've stopped believing it. One action at a time, you are building something stronger. Your mind is your most valuable asset, yet most people guard everything else while leaving their mind wide open. They lock their doors, protect their passwords, secure their bank accounts, but allow anyone or anything to influence their thinking. And over time, what you allow into your mind becomes who you are. It shapes your beliefs, your emotions, your decisions, and ultimately your future. That's why you must guard your mind like your life depends on it. Because in many ways, it truly does. Every belief you hold, every habit you build, every standard you live by, all of it is rooted in what you permit into your thinking. If you're not intentional about protecting this space, your mind will fill itself with whatever is easiest: fear, doubt, regret, excuses, other people's insecurities, and the noise of a world that constantly tries to hijack your focus. You cannot afford to allow anything and everything to take residence in your mind. Every opinion, every criticism, every piece of gossip, every random distraction carries influence. Some of it will weaken you. Some of it will strengthen you. And if you don't consciously filter what enters, your environment will decide for you. We live in a world full of noise, endless opinions, information overload, judgment flying in every direction. If you don't build strong mental boundaries, your thinking will become a dumping ground for the fears, anxieties, and doubts of the world. You will absorb other people's insecurities without even realizing it. You'll begin thinking thoughts that aren't even yours. Guarding your mind requires discipline. It means you stop consuming anything that weakens your perspective. You must ask yourself tough questions. Is what I'm watching helping me think stronger? Is what I'm listening to feeding my growth? Is this conversation elevating me or pulling me backward? If the answer is no, you don't need it. That's not harsh, it's responsible. You only get one mind. What you allow inside of it will either fuel your progress or drain your potential. The cost of careless input is always paid later, in your confidence, your mood, your motivation, your decisions. Influence is real. What you hear repeatedly becomes what you believe. What you see often becomes what you normalize. What you tolerate eventually becomes your standard. If you keep tolerating weak thinking, yours or others, it will become your default. You need to be precise, not paranoid. Build a mental environment that supports your growth, not your comfort. Some people treat their mind like a public park, open to everything, guarded by nothing. You must treat your mind like it's sacred ground, because it is. Every decision you make flows from your thinking. If your mind is cluttered, scattered, or weakened by constant negativity, your results will mirror that mental chaos. Guarding your mind also means paying close attention to how you speak to yourself. Often, the most damaging thoughts aren't from others. They come from your own internal voice. The stories you repeat to yourself, especially when you're stressed, disappointed, or tired, carry enormous weight. You must recognize when your mind is most vulnerable, during frustration, failure, exhaustion. That's when your old negative patterns try to resurface. If you're not aware, those patterns will sneak back in. You cannot afford to let your thoughts spiral during those moments. You have to pause and ask, Is this thought helping me right now? Is this narrative building me or breaking me? If it's not useful, you don't allow it to stay. You choose a better thought, even when you don't feel like it. That's what discipline looks like on the inside. It's not loud or dramatic. It's quiet, consistent mental leadership. Discipline is choosing clarity when confusion feels easier. Discipline is ignoring noise that tempts you to lose focus. Discipline is remaining grounded in your purpose when emotions rise. And you build this discipline by setting boundaries around your mental input. You don't allow random voices to plant seeds in your mind. You intentionally choose your influences, books, conversations, mentors, ideas, that sharpen your thinking. You need to feed your mind every single day with information that strengthens your resilience, challenges your thinking, sharpens your decision-making, and keeps your goals in front of you. It's not about avoiding the world, it's about fortifying your inner world so you can face external challenges without collapsing. Life will always have pressure. People will always have opinions. Circumstances will always shift. But when your mind is properly guarded, none of it destabilizes you. You feel the pressure, but you don't fall apart. You hear the criticism, but it doesn't define you. You face uncertainty, but you know who you are and where you're going. If you want peace, guard your mind. If you want consistent focus, guard your mind. If you want to lead your own life with strength, guard your mind. This foundation doesn't build itself by accident. You create it by being deliberate, by monitoring your thoughts, by challenging anything that doesn't serve your growth. Every time you allow weak input into your mind, you will pay for it eventually. Whether it's a drop in your discipline, a compromise in your standards, or a collapse in your confidence, it always shows up. That's why you must treat your thoughts like they matter, because they do. They shape your reality, one decision at a time. The stronger your thinking becomes, the more immune you are to chaos. The clearer your mind gets, the faster your decisions become. The cleaner your internal dialogue, the more peace you carry even under pressure. This doesn't mean you'll never face struggle. But it means you'll be prepared for it. You've built a mindset that withstands storms. You've trained a mind that holds its ground under pressure. You've developed an internal discipline that keeps you moving while others quit. And it all begins with taking ownership of what you allow to enter. The world will always pull for your attention. People will always try to give you their opinions. Circumstances will always try to shake your focus. But your mind is not their property. It belongs to you. Guard it like your future depends on it, because it does. The words you speak to yourself every single day quietly construct your confidence, or secretly destroy it. Many believe that confidence is born from achievement, but true confidence begins much earlier, with the language you allow inside your head. Your self-talk creates the foundation of your self-image, and that self-image determines how far you allow yourself to grow. What you repeat to yourself, you start to believe. And what you believe, you eventually live out. If you constantly tell yourself you're not good enough, you will behave in ways that reflect that belief. Your energy will shrink. Your courage will fade. You'll avoid risks, hesitate when opportunities appear, and hold yourself back from stretching toward the life you want. And it all starts with what you quietly whisper to yourself when no one else is listening. Most people would never allow a stranger to speak to them with the same harshness they use on themselves. Yet they tolerate their own toxic internal dialogue for years, never realizing how much it shapes their reality. Here's the truth. You do not need external applause to build internal belief. You don't need others to validate you before you start speaking power into your own mind. You must deliberately speak words to yourself that strengthen you, not weaken you. This doesn't mean lying to yourself. It means being deliberate about what you choose to reinforce. It means recognizing your efforts, your resilience, your discipline, and your ability to handle difficulty even when things aren't going your way. Confidence is built through consistent reinforcement, not perfection. Every time you try again, say it to yourself. Every time you finish what you start, say it to yourself. Every time you do something uncomfortable, acknowledge it. This is not arrogance. This is reinforcement. You are wiring your brain to see your own growth. Because when you only focus on your flaws, your confidence shrinks. But when you consistently recognize your forward movement, no matter how small, your confidence quietly strengthens. You must create a personal language of belief. You need to say things to yourself that reflect where you're going, not where you've been. Instead of waking up and thinking, "I hope today goes well," you wake up and declare, "I am committed to handling whatever today brings." Instead of saying, "This might be too hard," you train yourself to say, "Whatever it takes, I'll find a way." These aren't magical statements. They're mental instructions. They tell your mind how to approach the challenges ahead. And over time, your brain begins to accept this language as normal. That's how identity shifts, through repetition. Confidence doesn't live in perfection. It lives in progress. It lives in consistent effort. It grows through the mindset that says, "Even if I struggle, I will not fold. Even if I fail, I will get back up." Yes, there will be days when negative thoughts show up. That's normal. But you don't have to give them a seat at the table. You don't have to repeat them. You don't have to build your life around them. You have a choice. Will you continue recycling old self-defeating language? Or will you create a new voice inside that strengthens you when challenges appear? You are allowed to speak to yourself with respect. You are allowed to say, "I'm proud of how far I've come." You are allowed to remind yourself, "I've made mistakes, but I am still growing." You are allowed to say, "I don't need to be perfect. I need to be consistent." These are not weak statements. They are the words that build durability inside you. They keep you grounded when the storms of life rise. And understand this, your brain listens to repetition. It doesn't matter whether you whisper the words or shout them. The more often you say something, the more real it begins to feel. That's how beliefs are created, not through sudden inspiration, but through consistent repetition. Instead of saying, "I always fail," say, "Every failure makes me stronger and wiser." Instead of saying, "I'm not ready," say, "I am learning and improving every day." These are not just nicer sentences. They are powerful instructions to your brain. They rewire how you respond to setbacks. They shape how you carry yourself under pressure. They fuel stronger decisions. When you choose stronger words, you build stronger thoughts. When you build stronger thoughts, you create stronger actions. And those actions lead to stronger outcomes. You do not need to wait for a perfect moment to speak strength into yourself. In fact, the time your voice matters most is when everything feels uncertain, when you're frustrated, behind, discouraged. That's when you must take control of your internal language. Speak like someone who takes ownership. Speak like someone who believes in growth. Speak like someone who refuses to remain small. Your voice can calm your nerves. Your voice can reset your focus. Your voice can stabilize your mind under pressure. But only if you train it. Confidence isn't built when everything is easy. It's built when you speak truth to yourself in the middle of struggle. It's built when you catch yourself spiraling and say, "I'm not going there today." It's built when you stop waiting for others to remind you of your worth, and you take that responsibility into your own hands. There is great strength in speaking to yourself with clear, deliberate, committed words. Say things that refuse to let you back down. Say things that hold you to a higher standard. Say things that make you stand a little taller. Because the way you talk to yourself directly influences how you treat yourself, and how you treat yourself sets the tone for how others treat you as well. This isn't about pretending. This is about leadership, self-leadership. It's about guiding your mind with the same clarity, respect, and wisdom you would offer to someone you deeply care about. Most people give better advice to others than they give to themselves. Flip that. Speak to yourself with strength first. Because your mind is always listening. Your future is being built, not someday, but right now, through the words you allow to live inside your head. Your internal voice is either fueling your confidence or feeding your doubt. Use it to lead. Use it to strengthen. Use it to stabilize you when life tests you. Confidence is not luck. It's not genetics. It's repetition. It's clarity. It's choosing the right words every single day. Your progress isn't only determined by what you do. It's equally shaped by what you allow yourself to keep thinking. No matter how hard you work, no matter how disciplined your routines are, if your mind remains cluttered with thoughts that no longer serve you, you'll always feel like you're dragging extra weight behind you. That's why you must regularly clean out the thoughts that slow you down. A cluttered mind operates like a cluttered room. It clouds your judgment, overwhelms your emotions, and diminishes your clarity. You cannot move freely toward your future if your thinking is crowded with doubts, regrets, guilt, and old stories that no longer serve your growth. You must get honest about what's living in your head. Some of these thoughts have been with you for years, so long that they've become familiar. But just because a thought feels familiar doesn't mean it's useful. Familiarity can be one of the greatest traps because you've rehearsed those limiting beliefs so many times that they feel natural, even though they've been holding you back. Cleaning out your mind doesn't mean you erase your past. It means you release what no longer supports your future. You cannot drag every mistake, every insecurity, and every outdated belief with you and expect to move forward with power. Start by identifying the thoughts that cost you more than they reward you. These are the thoughts that emerge every time you step into a challenge. They say, "You're not ready. You're not capable. You've failed before, you'll fail again." They don't always sound loud or aggressive. In fact, they often sound reasonable. But that's how they gain their power. They disguise themselves as caution, as wisdom, as being realistic. Yet they quietly rob you of courage. You need to confront these thoughts directly. Not just acknowledge them, but challenge them. Look them in the eye and declare, "You don't belong here anymore. Your mental space is limited." Every thought that occupies your mind takes up valuable space that could be used for stronger, clearer, more empowering thinking. The more you allow weak or useless thoughts to live rent-free, the more they rob you of energy, clarity, and confidence. This process of mental clearing isn't something you do once and forget. It's a discipline you must practice consistently. Just as you clean your physical environment to stay focused, you must regularly audit your thinking to maintain clarity. Many of the thoughts that still limit you today weren't even created by you. They were handed to you by others, a parent who was critical, a teacher who dismissed your potential, a group that underestimated you. You may have internalized their voices and carried them for years as your own. But you're not a child anymore. You're no longer under the authority of those old influences. Continuing to replay those voices in your head is not protection, it's self-sabotage. You are not required to believe what someone else planted in you years ago. You have permission to outgrow the outdated versions of yourself. Part of cleaning your thinking also means identifying how fear has written your mental scripts. Many people avoid risk not because they're incapable, but because they've convinced themselves that failure would defeat them. That mindset is what paralyzes progress before it even starts. Failure is not your enemy. Living small because of fear is. Any thought that convinces you to avoid what you believe in must be challenged and removed. You can't build a future on a foundation of hesitation. One powerful tool for clearing your thinking is simple. Get your thoughts out of your head and onto paper. Don't filter. Write down the thoughts that loop in your mind. Write your doubts, your fears, your limiting beliefs, your frustrations. Then read them back and ask one question for each. Does this thought help me grow or slow me down? If it slows you down, rewrite it immediately. Replace it with a thought that supports action, reflects your values, and pushes you towards strength. This is not about lying to yourself. It's about refusing to allow mental narratives that create paralysis instead of progress. People often feel stuck not because they lack options, but because their mind is jammed with too much noise, thoughts about the past, fears about the future, what others might think, and imagined failures that haven't even happened. None of those thoughts move you forward. Only clear, growth-oriented thinking creates momentum. You also must protect your mind from the outside influences you consume daily. Every conversation, every piece of media, every piece of content leaves a mark. If you aren't intentional about what you consume, you'll absorb whatever surrounds you, And much of it is designed to distract, weaken, and divide your focus. You don't have to engage in every conversation. You don't have to consume every piece of content. You don't have to accept every opinion that comes your way. Be strict about what enters your mind. If it doesn't align with your values or fuel your goals, it doesn't deserve your attention. One of the most powerful choices you can make is to create a mental environment that supports your growth. Speak with clarity. Think with intention. Refuse to entertain thoughts that pull you backward. You are allowed to be strict with your focus. You are allowed to let go of thoughts that once felt comfortable but now keep you small. You are allowed to shift your mindset, without asking permission from anyone else. Growth isn't just about adding new knowledge. It's often about subtraction, clearing out the clutter that prevents you from seeing your own potential. When you release the thoughts that say, "It's too late. It's too risky. I'm not good enough," you free yourself to build momentum toward the life you want. Start paying close attention to your thought patterns, especially under stress. That's when your default mindset shows up. If you catch yourself falling into the same old loops, that's your signal. Not to shame yourself, but to clear it out. You're no longer that person. Your thinking must catch up to the person you've worked so hard to become. You are responsible for what thoughts you hold on to. When you finally accept that responsibility, everything changes. You stop blaming circumstances. You stop feeling like a victim of your own mind. You take full ownership. You start building a new narrative that serves your growth. You strengthen your identity by choosing thoughts that align with your future, not your past. Because when your thinking is clear, your direction becomes obvious. When your mind is steady, your confidence becomes unshakable. And when your internal world is clean, your external world finally starts to reflect the strength you've been building inside. Every single day, you are given a choice: to think in a way that strengthens you, or to think in a way that slowly erodes your progress. This choice may seem small in each moment, but over time, these patterns of thinking compound and build the life you experience. Your thoughts are the architects of your reality. When you consistently think strong, your life begins to shift, not because external circumstances suddenly change, but because you've changed how you move through them. Thinking strong doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect. It means choosing mental strength even when the situation is far from ideal. It means waking up each day and deciding that, no matter what happens, you will control your responses. You will take ownership of your emotions, your actions, and your future. This mental discipline transforms how you live. Not by making life easier, but by making you stronger, steadier, and more capable in handling whatever comes your way. When you think strong, you no longer waste energy on trivial distractions. You don't spiral when problems arise. You don't let others' opinions sway your direction. Instead, you remain focused. You stay grounded. You continue building. Strong thinking gives you space between your emotions and your reactions. You feel the pressure, but you don't explode. You feel the discomfort, but you don't quit. You create a pause where you assess, reflect, and choose your response with clarity. That pause is discipline, and it's developed through intentional thinking. You train strong thinking the same way you train your body, with repetition, with challenge, and with consistency. Every time you choose not to react impulsively, you strengthen that mental muscle. Every time you stay focused despite distractions, you build resilience. Every time you refuse to follow weak thoughts down a familiar spiral, you create a stronger, more stable mind. Most people allow their thinking to run on autopilot. They wake up with the same worries they carried yesterday, and they wonder why nothing changes. But when you take a moment to stop and ask yourself, "Is this thought building the life I want to create?" That's when your transformation begins. The shift doesn't require external permission. It requires internal ownership. Strong thinking is the foundation for clear decisions, powerful action, and long-term consistency. When your thinking is clear, you don't waste time overanalyzing every setback. You don't panic when plans shift. You stay composed, because your mind is rooted in strength. This is where most people struggle. They want different results, but they refuse to change the thinking that produces their current choices. They blame circumstances, schedules, and other people. But circumstances do not control you, your response does. And your response always starts in your thinking. That's why your first thoughts of the day matter. The moment you open your eyes, you set the tone for everything that follows. If you wake up already defeated, already stressed, already doubting your ability to move forward, you've surrendered your power before you've even started. But if you wake up with strength, even if it's quiet, even if it's simple, you create momentum. You tell yourself, I'm capable. I'm clear on my priorities. I'm committed to showing up. You won't always feel strong. But you can always think strong. That's a choice you control every day. And as you practice this consistently, something powerful happens. You begin to handle pressure with more clarity. You solve problems faster. You remain grounded even when life is unpredictable. You become someone others trust during chaos, not because you have all the answers, but because you carry stability inside. Confidence grows from repetition. Not from perfection, but from repeatedly showing yourself that you can handle whatever comes. Strong thinking says, I may not know every step, but I trust myself to take the next one. That's where real confidence lives. To maintain this level of thinking, you must protect what influences your mind. Surround yourself with people who challenge you to rise. Consume information that sharpens your clarity. Limit your exposure to voices that feed your doubt or drain your focus. The environment you create for your mind matters. You're not just protecting your time. You're protecting your future by protecting your thinking. And every time you catch yourself slipping into weak patterns, overanalyzing, blaming, doubting, you have an opportunity. Not to beat yourself up, but to pause, redirect, and choose better. You tell yourself, this thought isn't serving me. This narrative doesn't align with who I'm becoming. I choose strength. That is how strong people move through life, not by avoiding pressure, but by thinking with power in the middle of it. Strong thinking produces habits. Those habits shape your identity. Your identity guides your decisions. Your decisions create your life. You stop waiting for life to get easier. You stop waiting for luck. You stop being controlled by what's happening around you. Because your mind is already strong enough to handle whatever happens next. And slowly, you look around and realize, your life has changed. Not by chance. Not overnight. But through disciplined, intentional thinking practiced every single day. You've trained your mind to be an asset, not an obstacle. You've built a mindset that protects your focus, your discipline, and your identity. This is the work most avoid. But it's the work that leads to real, lasting change, not temporary motivation, but permanent transformation. You don't arrive here by accident. You arrive here by showing up for your mind every single day. So decide, right now, to think strong. To think with purpose. To think like the leader of your own life. When you make this decision daily, you won't have to chase a better life. You'll create it, one thought at a time.